So whenever I think about Horseshoe Bay, I wonder what their tourist commercials are like. A town full of intrigue, mystery, and supernatural occurrences. Maybe the hotels are cheap. Hi guys, my name is Maria Park and this is Approach to Nerd, and in this episode we are reviewing Nancy Drew Season 2 Episode 1, the season premiere, entitled The Search for the Midnight Wraith. Which, why are you searching for wraiths? like, Nancy. So this episode basically was pretty good. It was dark, lots of jump scares. We got our Creature of the Week thing as well as dealing with a big ongoing mystery that was set up in season 1 finale, and that is the Aglaika. And I hope I said that right. I say every wrong word. Everything I say is wrong. I don't pronounce anything correctly, but we're gonna say Aglaika because that's what I think they're saying, and that's what I remember them saying when I watched it last night. So, Aglaika, doing that. Now the Aglaika is basically an entity who used to be human and has this huge vendetta against the Marvins, so it's Bess's family. And for some reason we learned in this episode has been summoned regularly by Hudson women, who Nancy now knows is her biological family. And that plays a lot into this episode. Nancy goes through a lot of soul searching and not accepting that she is a Hudson. She is not talking to Carson at all. She is ticked off that he did not tell her she was adopted and that she was really Lucy Sable and Ryan Hudson's, love child, basically. So yeah, she is having issues. So in this particular episode, it's kind of we're still seeing our Scooby Drew gang dealing with the death visions that they had in the season finale. And so we saw George and Nick were like drowning in his truck. Bess was basically being burned alive. And poor Ace was being impaled by a very huge meat hook in the freezer at the claw. And they're trying to figure out how to stop it. And what's interesting is Nick has a plan, to give his truck away, or at least it's suggested by Bess. I think it was Bess that suggested it, to get rid of his truck. So Bess tries to, and the tow truck company just brings the truck back. And you see at the end of the episode that Ace was wrapping like bandage or cloth or something around the meat hook in the freezer of the claw. And Nancy, him and Nancy were having a talk, and then she looked and he left, and the wrapping undid itself from the claw and fell on the ground. So it's making it seem like all of the deaths are basically inevitable. Even Nancy, who had a vision of herself falling off the same cliff her mother did, all of that stuff seems to be, inevitable. And Nancy is going crazy trying to figure out how to stop it, as well as trying to prove that she is not, a Hudson. So the creature feature, or the creature of the week portion of the episode, is basically to do with a wraith. So it starts off, we have Detective Tamora, who comes to basically arrest Nancy because a young girl who had been attacked and passed out in Gorham Forest, or it was Gorham Woods or Forest, I believe it was Gorham Woods. She, when they're rescuing her, says Nancy's name. And so, of course, Tamora's like, yeah, you're a suspect. You can tell Tamora's not really thrilled with Nancy because, she is a prodigy detective without a badge. And I guess it just rubs him the wrong way. So he's not very nice to her. So he takes her down to see the girl in the hospital, and the girl's still unconscious. And so Nancy has never seen her before, but she does manage to do like an imprint of this code on the girl's hand, and presses her hand to it and takes a picture of it. And then of course they find out about the Gorham Woods, and they find a video of the girl that they did not know up until that point. And then we realize that basically they are the Bobbsey twins, and different in the books. So we have Gil and Amanda. They're fraternal twins, a brother and sister fraternal twins thief duo, who have decided to try to extort Nancy for money because they have a mirror that they claim can stop the Aglaika. And, Nancy confirms that she remembers seeing it in this picture with the white women from last season, the women in white. The white women. And so they want $750 from Nancy. So Nancy and the Scooby, Drew gang go to the woods, the Gorham Woods, to find it. And they kind of split up. So we've got Nick and George going to track the footsteps that they find. And then we have Nancy, Ace, and Bess going to check this, hunter's lodge that is supposed to be abandoned, that Ace remembers when he was an Eagle Scout seeing. Well, unfortunately, when they get there, they hear voices, or Bess hears voices that Nancy thinks, she's imagining, and it turns out that Nancy's biological grandfather is there with some shady looking dudes doing some shady looking deals. And so he puts them in like a room with a bunch of like sharp objects and death tools. And, Ryan, her bio dad, Nancy's bio dad, comes to her rescue saying that he was meeting her there. Thank you for all your work, solving case. And he was giving her a tip, blah, blah, blah. What was interesting is, I said at the beginning of this review that Nancy is so paranoid about being a Hudson, and she doesn't want to be anything like it. And the grandfather had his arms folded, and he was twitching his fingers, and Nancy was doing the exact same things. Of course, that just set her off again in this whole, psychological, oh my God, I'm more like a Hudson, I'm a bad person, type, mode of thinking. It doesn't help that Ace is upset at this whole scenario and terrified, rightly so, about, being impaled. And so he's being kind of cold and aloof to Nancy. And so she even says, she makes a comment saying, do you think I'm like a Hudson, basically? He doesn't really say no, but he does kind of imply, well, let's see, you put your friends in situations that they basically don't want to be in, and you're basically, he's just paralleling, what she does and what the Hudsons do to people. And yeah, it kind of sucked, but it set her off. But back to the Bobbsey twins. So what happened was, Amanda was still in the hunter's cabin, and Gil, he's a diabetic, so he was going to get, I guess, his insulin pump. And so he leaves. So she gets attacked, and he's off, he's walking to get the pump. And what Nick realizes is that Gil was going in one direction and ended up running in an opposite direction. And they find his insulin pump. So now they're like, well, we went from trying to meet up with this person to get this mirror who's storing them, Nancy, for money, to a rescue mission. And they do manage to find him after the Wraith starts chasing them. They go into this like abandoned bus, and Gil just happens to be there. And Gil is so badass, even though he's about to have like probably a diabetic seizure or going to a diabetic coma. He's still like, don't touch my mirror until you give me the money, and then it keeps going up. He's like, and now it's $850, and so I thought that was interesting. But they do manage to give him his insulin, and then they talk about the Wraith, and they realize that they need to have happy thoughts, or not have fear, because the Wraith feeds on fear and then kills you. And so they keep trying to do that. With Bess, it's kind of impossible because she's always like panicking. But they start talking about the first day at the Claw where they are met. And so Nancy starts talking about how it was a good day. And she's thinking about when she met Nick. And she starts looking at Nick. Well, Nick and George are now in a relationship, and they don't know how to tell Nancy this. And so it's very awkward, and especially when Nick grabs George's hand. And the Wraith does attack them right before Nancy can, fully process that. But I thought that was interesting. But I already know from reading some of the spoilers for this season that Gil Bobbsey is going to be her love interest. So, and it shows, because he did try to like protect her against the Wraith a little bit. And she was like, get my friends off the bus, because, she has to do this self-sacrificing, I'm going to prove I'm not a Hudson crap, which Ace calls out later in the episode. But, I thought that was interesting, that that whole awkward tension between, Nancy and Nick and George, and Nancy doesn't technically even know why. So it's interesting. There's a lot going on in this series. And again, she's not talking to Carson at all, because he did not tell her she was adopted. Basically, she feels like her whole life is basically a lie. And her adopted dad knew this. The man she thought was her real father. And she's been through it with him. She thought he killed, Lucy. There's so much stuff. She realizes that he was basically working for the Hudsons. So much stuff. So the father's not living with her. She doesn't, and Nancy doesn't want anything to do with Ryan, because if she has something to do with Ryan, then she has to admit that she's a Hudson. So she can't fully invest in him either, even though he's doing everything he can to get in her life. So Nancy's going through some stuff, but long story short, she sets the Wraith on fire because she realizes that it's scared of fire, and manages to get off the bus, so everybody's safe, at least from the Wraith, but not from, you know, I'm going to call her Aggie, the Eclaica, whatever. But they do manage to retrieve the mirror after Nancy does pay Gil the money. And they see a message saying, it was kind of like in code or whatever, but basically she has to go find a sea shanty. And Nancy does kind of drive off to do that alone, because Nancy does everything alone. But before that, Gil gets arrested because, you know, extorting money, and Nancy gets arrested for helping to steal the mirror. But Ryan once again gets her off, you know, and Gil gets to see his sister. So we do see that Gil and Amanda are very close. And yeah, I'm really interested to see what the twins do this season. I'm excited because it's going to be very cool. But something that I did notice, so two things. Number one, Elizabeth was not in this, and I'm really not sure what's going to happen with her and Bess, because Bess, if you remember last season, did not invite Elizabeth to her Aunt Diana's birthday party because Aunt Diana does not approve of their relationship. And you got to feel bad for Bess, because Bess came there to find her family. She so wants to belong to this family. She wants a family to belong to, even though she belongs to the Scooby-Doo gang. You know, sometimes the family we are born into is not the family that we have. It's the one we make. So she hasn't gotten to that point yet. And I really hope she does not mess up this relationship with Elizabeth, because Elizabeth puts up with her kleptonism, her, you know, sometimes she lies, you know, like all of these little quirks that she has. Elizabeth puts up with all of that. And, you know, I'm worried because Elizabeth wasn't even in the season premiere. And I don't know what's going to happen going forward. And I'm really hoping that it's not going to be another relationship that's just gone. Because every time I see a couple, an LGBT couple together, I'm always like, okay, how long is this going to last? Because CW has a huge record for breaking every relationship up, except for Sarah and Ava so far, knock on wood, on Legends of Tomorrow are still together. But I won't talk about what happened in the 100. And if you watch Charmed, what happened with Nico and Mel. And I just go down the line. I do not want to have a repeat of that. I actually think that Elizabeth is very, very good for Bess and very good with Bess. And so I'm hard pressed as a woman, a queer woman, to accept the fact that Elizabeth may not be in the series. I was also very annoyed last season because Elizabeth, I know she was a state cop, and so it was her revelation, blah, blah, blah. But even after they revealed her, you know, to be on their side, she didn't have a lot of screen time. And I'm really hoping that she's not one of the characters that we see every 5 episodes, because that is really annoying, because I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of Nancy and Gil. We're going to see a ton of Nick and George, but we're not going to see hardly anything with Elizabeth and Bess. I'm hoping I'm wrong. But yeah, that'll basically leave a sour taste in my mouth on this series if that happens. I'm just putting that out there. But as for the mystery, the creature of the week, everything going with Aggie, that's my new nickname for the entity now, is very, you know, exciting. And I love where they're going with this. And I really want to see how the Scooby-Doo gang get out of being killed, basically, because, you know, that's some scary, terrifying, predestined stuff. And so I want to see how they not only get out of that, what the vendetta is against the Marvins, and why the Hudsons are able to summon, you know, the Eclaica. So yeah, I'm excited. But I want to know what you think. If you've seen this episode, leave me a comment below and let me know. And if you would like to sign up for Jury Duty, hit the subscribe button. If you'd like to know who's next on the Nerd Bell, hit the notification bell. Until next time, I can't wait for you to approach the nerd. Bye, guys.
Thank you for watching my video. I really appreciate it, but hey, the party doesn't have to stop now. Click on one of these videos and keep it going.